Okay, a little special Put On Raiders podcast here with myself and Ryan Holmes. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing good.
So we heard Vinny B on Sirius, um, Sirius radio talking about a lot of things with Josh Jacobs. Also got the news today, last couple of days that Jonathan Taylor is going to be he's able to shop around now, try to look for teams. So the running back market is changing a little bit. What were your thoughts about? I didn't hear the whole interview with your Vinny B. I don't have serious, but I know you texted me. Oh, what were some of the things that he was talking about?
Yeah, it's very similar to the article Vinny B had written in the Las Vegas Review Journal yesterday. And it was kind of, the report came out, there's expectations of Josh Jacobs reporting. And Charlie Weiss, I believe, was on NFL radio. He did a good job of asking Vinny expectations from who. That there's just this term out there, expectations. There's no source. And, just listening to Vinny, it sounded like the Raiders expect Josh Jacobs to report. You saw Josh Jacobs go on social media and kind of say the same thing yesterday, like, I haven't said anything. And then he quickly deleted the tweet. Amber Theo Harris was the other co-host who works for the Raiders. Her and Charlie Weiss were hosting the show on NFL radio, and she kind of said the same thing. She's talked to Josh Jacobs' agent. The agent's not saying anything. So there's nothing coming out of Jacobs' camp that indicates that he will report. There's just expectations, as Vinny said, that he will report, and the Raiders expect Josh Jacobs to report. And now, Vinny was kind of giving the Raiders line. He was counting down the number of practices left before the beginning of the season, what it's going to take for Josh to get in shape. I've been saying that for 2 months on Put on Raiders podcast that, this is kind of when he needs to report this week or at the end of this week by Sunday or Monday. If he wants to have a chance to get into shape to play week one, there's 7 practices left, according to Vinny, between now and the start of the season for the Raiders. Because, obviously they're going to travel to Dallas. There's some travel days. Then you got to get ready. You can only practice so many days per week. So, the time is ticking for Josh Jacobs to get ready for week one. Now, obviously, Vinny did also play the money card. It's $10 million. It's tough to walk away from. Charlie Weiss quickly did the math and said it's a little under $600,000 per game check. It's tough to see Josh walking away from that. But the indication just from hearing the interview is the Raiders are kind of just putting this out there that they expect Josh Jacobs to report. I do as well. I expect him to report. But there's no source coming out of Josh Jacobs' camp, is the way I took out of the interview, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean they've kind of gone black, if you will, on the ops, if you will. No talking about like what's going on, and they're not linking anything either. So they're playing close to the best. The Raiders are kind of putting it out there that hey, we expect you to show up for work, kind of that kind of attitude. So we'll see if that kind of gets things going. It kind of makes sense for him to show up and make his presence felt and come join his teammates. But just for the financial part of it. But I did think it's interesting that I think Vinny B did say something about no team was interested
Yes.
in Josh Jacobs, which I thought was very that sounds like something from management. And
Yeah, the way he worded it is Josh Jacobs was a non-exclusive. It's a non-exclusive franchise tag. I mean, any team can approach the Raiders, can approach Josh Jacobs with a contract, and the Raiders would have the right to accept it or not, and then they could work out trade compensation. And Vinny said it. He said no team approached the Raiders in the offseason about Josh Jacobs. So take it for what that
yeah,
means. Maybe they didn't because they knew they didn't want to give him the contract and give out the compensation. But according to Vinny B, there wasn't a single team that was interested in Josh Jacobs this offseason and
yeah.
acquiring him via trade.
No, well, let's make him be a free agent and see if that changes.
That will change quickly if he was a free agent.
Exactly. I'm gonna say whether it's Rich Gannon, whether it's Vinny Bonsignor, whether it's anybody else in the Raider media or like have ties to the Raiders, I think the expectations of like that fourth place finish have kind of gone away. Right now, we're talking about the Raiders winning, you know, possible 12 games, possible 10 games now. Like, what are your thoughts about that part of it? Because I just think that's going to be a big jump for the Raiders. I could see how they would be able to do it or be to get better and be more competitive. But I think are these people asking a little bit too much for them to make that kind of turnaround in this season?
Yeah, I think Rich Gannon was being very optimistic. 12 wins with that schedule and with the defense is playing better, but we haven't seen it when the lights come on in a regular season. And I expect the defense to make a jump and be better, but they're going to have to be drastically better to get this team
Yeah,
12 wins. Vinny on the radio this morning said 9 to 10, and I could see that. I'm
that's
kind of
doable.
in the 8 to 9 range, so another win, another game goes here or there. Get to 10. It is possible. That's assuming Jimmy G stays healthy. Um, the guys out in the desert that set the books, though, they have their feet in the sand at 6.5. I got that number. I took the over, so hopefully we get over 6.5. Getting 8, 9, 10 wins. I'd like to see this team get to 10. I'm hoping they can get to 10, but that's why they play the games. You never know.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
they could go out. Week 1 against Denver, they've had Denver's number for the last few seasons, so I don't see that as a huge obstacle. And can they shock people week 2 at Buffalo? They can. Buffalo hasn't looked very good this preseason. If the Raiders come out and they stay disciplined, you know, there's a chance they can win that game. There's a chance they can come home and beat Pittsburgh. So you got a chance. They're going to have a very good special teams unit. If Josh Jacobs reports, they're going to be able to run the football. They can create some turnovers, and they can not turn the ball over on offense.
The
You
kicking
never
game
know.
is
So
the Raiders' kicking game is amazing. So if it's a
yeah.
close game and they get the ball last, you can definitely count on Carlson to kind of to knock it through as well. But it, Aiden O'Connell, I know the legend grows with every preseason game, which is kind of crazy to me. Whether it's quarterback school or whoever's doing, like how should Raider fans kind of just view this? Should they? I'm more of the school of thought that hey, let's just view this as he proved that he's an NFL player. Right now, I would say he's the backup, and it makes sense for him to be the backup. But I'm not going to sit there and say that he's pushing Jimmy Garoppolo for starting spot. I mean, say what you want about Jimmy G, he started a lot of games, and that experience it's valuable when it comes to regular season football.
Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit on the last podcast. Aiden O'Connell has proven that he belongs in the NFL. He belongs to be a viable backup. Now there's a chance he's going to start some games this year if Jimmy G gets hurt. Could he be a starter down the line? Yeah, I think he has the ability to be a starter. It's what level of starter. Then that's what really matters in this league is can you win a Super Bowl with the quarterback? I don't know. We don't know where Aiden O'Connell's career is going to look like, but if you had to guess, he's probably if he had to start a full season, he'd probably be in the bottom half of the league in quarterbacks, maybe the bottom third. And that's just what it is right now. Now, could he get better over time and grow into it? It would probably take a while, and he would have to have a lot of things around him. But he's showing the footwork, the decision making, the ability to grasp the offense, the ability of ball placement, to show that he could be a starter in this league. But there's a big difference from a starter in this league, and you can win a Super Bowl with this quarterback. The Raiders just had one of those.
Yes.
They just had a guy who was a clear starter in this league. That's if you wanted to argue a 10 to 15 in the league, and it wasn't good enough based on what was around the former quarterback. So we'll see. It's a great pick in the 4th round so far. We'll see what plays out. And right now, it's Jimmy G's team, and the Raiders are going to roll with Jimmy G.
Yeah, and like I said, the next meaningful game the Raiders play is going to be Denver, and it's coming up. It's coming up soon. I would not look for this game coming up in Dallas. You're going to just see you're just there just to have the
Chase
buddies
Garbers.
over. Chase
You're
Garbers
going to see Chase Garbers.
play the whole game most likely, and then that's it. I mean, there's nothing else to see there. Just you want to have some buddies over just to talk about the fantasy football draft or whatever. That's the time to do it because that game at Dallas is going to mean nothing and nobody's going to play of significance for the Raiders. So just want to hop on here real quick and just talk about some Josh Jacobs stuff with Ryan. Anything else before we head out?
I will add this. I went back through after I heard the interview with Vinny V. Since the year 2000, how many running backs have repeated as the rushing title leader? So I know Josh Jacobs had a great year. That the expectation of him repeating that year is unlikely, especially if he's not in camp and in shape and he struggles the first couple of weeks. But how many running backs have repeated as rushing champions in the last 22 years? How many do you think there's been? Putting you on the spot a little bit. There's been two.
Three.
There's been two.
Oh,
Derrick Henry
okay.
and LaDainian Tomlinson. Those are the only two. I guess if you want to count 2000, Edger and James was 1999 and 2000, but
Yeah.
it's unlikely that Josh Jacobs is going to lead the league in rushing again.
Is it? But is it to my thing on that is I guess my if I was Josh Jacobs' agent, whatever. Like, are people with the amount of carries that Josh Jacobs had, and like I said, we kind of just put this show on. We didn't like have time to kind of sit down and do a bunch of research. But I was wondering if what, the amount of carries he's had have had people fallen off the map after they've had as many carries as Josh Jacobs have, or are they still pretty good, been pretty good as far as having another year that's not maybe not lead the league but comparable. So I think that's what I mean that's what I think. I think
Okay.
with this with this offensive line, another year in the quote unquote system, it would seem like he'd be able to have another solid year, with this team. But Jimmy Benny also talked about the analytics say don't give a running back another contract. So it's probably just I think the thing about the running backs just is about money. That's all it really is. It's not about like production. It's just like okay, I can fill this position with production and not spend a lot of money.
Yeah, quickly to answer your question, I just clicked on Derrick Henry while we're sitting here. So he led the league
Yeah.
in 2019. He had 303 carries, averaged
Yep.
5.1 yards a carry. The next year, 378 carries, averaged 5.4. So he was a little bit better the second year. Josh Jacobs had 340, but he also touched the ball 53 times in the passing game. Derrick Henry doesn't get catch passes.
At all.
So
Yeah.
he got another 50 hits on Josh Jacobs' body. But in 2021, 2 years of that kind of heavy workload, Derrick Henry played in 8 games, so he missed half the season,
Yep.
and he averaged 4.3 yards a carry. So we went down a full yard a carry and missed half the season on year
Yeah.
three. So that's
Injuries.
that's why
Yeah.
te- that's why teams are reluctant to give running backs 3, 4, 5 year deals with guaranteed money out into the third and fourth year. Josh Jacobs right now wants guaranteed money into the third year of a new deal, and the Raiders said no. That's why,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
chances are they're going to get hurt and their production will go down at some point if you give them the ball 300 to 350 times a season. Josh Jacobs touched the ball 393 times last year. And he's a great player. And I expect Josh Jacobs to
Yes.
be in uniform and rush for 1,500 yards, hopefully, and be a real
Yeah.
difference maker. But there are reasons why teams are reluctant to give out these kind of contracts to running backs.
And to switch, which all great points, and I totally understand. I probably would have them sticking to a 2 year deal with him. It does from a team's perspective. As much as I love Josh Jacobs, it does make sense, 100%, 100%. I would add if you had given 2 years, that's fine. Third year, it's hard to justify it.
You
Um,
could give them the third year. They just don't want to guarantee money into the third year so that they can make a
and he wants
decision.
to get yeah,
He
yeah, that's
wants
true.
guaranteed money into year three.
Yeah, can't do that. I get that part. You made a declaration, not declaration, but you talked about the last thing is the Jonathan Taylor, a nice spot for him in Chicago. Do you think it's possible? I think looking at that team, looking at that roster, um, I forgot what Khalil is their
Blair
running back.
Herbert.
Khalil Herbert is their running back, and I just think they just got Tyreek Cohen back as well. But that's a team. They're not paying the quarterback. They want to make a jump this year. I would think that a young quarterback like Justin Fields would kind of love to have you got more on the outside and then be able to run the football with Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I was just thinking of teams in the NFC because obviously I would think the Colts would want to trade him out of the AFC if at all possible. Most teams want to do that when they move a star player. And like, what team in the NFC could use a running back right now? And immediately I went to the Bears. Young quarterback Justin Fields is entering year three. They don't have a star running back. They still need more weapons. They need to take some pressure off of him to
Mm-hmm.
let Fields continue to develop. They need to find out they need to pay Fields over the next year or two. So
Yeah.
what better way than to go out? They have plenty of cap space. They have over $30 million. No, six. I think it's 16 million now, and somewhere in the 80 to 85 million next year. So they're going to have to spend money. They have extra draft picks from trading down from the number one pick this year. I think they have two number ones next year. Not that I would give up a number one in order to do that, but they have plenty of
No.
ammunition if they want to give up draft picks to go get Jonathan Taylor and pay
Who's
him for
number
2 or 3 years. They can do that.
Who's number one is that?
They have the
The
Panthers number one.
Panthers number one. Oh, okay. I mean that's they got to.
They
I
have
mean, it's a
I'm
big
looking
year
at it
for
right now. They have an extra
yeah.
4, a 1, a 4, and a 7. So they have
And
some
the thing,
extra draft picks.
and like honestly, with that draft, everybody's talking about that and the incoming quarterback class. Like this is a big year for Justin Fields. He got to show he can play. I mean, if they want to, I mean, because they wanted to try to as a competition or move on, they might have to them. They might have the tools to do it next year. If he has a bad year, that's crazy. I mean, it's you
They
gotta do what you
could.
gotta do. They could. But I do think that would be an interesting lineup, though. He get a lot of carries there, in Chicago, and then you have a lot of weapons on the outside too as well. All right, Ryan. Thanks for hopping on real quick. With
I know
Raider
ours.
Nation, Raider Nation. We'll see you next time.
Take care.